It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 250. Tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
That's a number.
Kodra.
Because we live in a base 10 system, that's a relevant number to us.
Tam.
Hello.
So we're down a Grace and a Thalen tonight, but we have an extra special guest. And like for the rest of our listeners, I don't know if this person is as significant as it is for us, but like we have Ammo, otherwise known as the Twitter handle Ammo's Art, and a bunch of other things. And if you're in the free company, it's Isoline or Isoline?
It would be Isoline.
Okay, I almost got it. So yeah, like for those that don't know Ammo, she is more or less our official, unofficial podcast artist. Basically, all of the art that you've seen over the last several years comes from her, and she does an amazing job. And as soon as I get one commission done, I seem to think up another commission that I want her to do. So, Ammo, anything you want to tell our listeners of relevance other than what I just said?
I play video games and I draw. I think that pretty much covers the basics.
You're also a comic book nerd.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And a Persona fan.
Also true.
So yeah, she's going to join us tonight, and we'll see what happens.
Hello.
So the first topic bounced from last week, I believe, and this is an Ash topic? Like I totally expected this to be a Tam topic. No,
It's not an Ash topic.
Oh, you just moved it. Okay, never mind. I didn't look far enough down in the history. Breaking rules for a better experience. Tam, tee this up.
Well, so basically, I spent a lot of time thinking about games and the design thereof and so on. And I spend a lot of time also thinking about like how to improve games, how to make games better or more accessible, or nothing is perfect. There's a lot of what can be done to make the experience better in some way or another. And it's sort of a hobby, but also it's a thing that I spend a lot of time thinking about, where it's like, oh, hey, I would really like to play this game with friends, but my friends don't like it. What about it don't they like? How can I fix it? How can I change it? Like, I can design games. I can make changes to rules. And so this kind of comes from two different places at the same time. One is listening to a lot of people talking about Sekiro. And, I found I cheated my way through Sekiro and it was great. And people getting really up in arms about it. It makes me think of like plugging in a Game Shark or a Game Genie back in the day, or like putting in the code in like Sonic 2 or like Super Empire Strikes Back.
The way to make Contra playable.
Yeah, and that's really like in a lot of ways it's a huge thing. There's whole parts of Sonic that I never got to see, that I wouldn't have never gotten to see without those without like codes, without breaking the rules so that I can get to see more of the game. I would have checked out of Super Empire Strikes Back in the first level if it hadn't been for my ability to like level skip. And so it's partly that, partly like, hey, I'm gonna alter the rules of this game I'm playing to enjoy it more. And like on the extreme other side of that, like I really, really love the new stuff with Dishonored and the most recent Thief that let me hyper tune the experience to my tastes. And in my case, I'm taking the stealth parts of that game and amping them all the way up, but I'm still editing the rule set. It's just out of a menu, a slightly different menu than the menu that came in Sonic 2.
So the funny thing about like cheat codes and stuff like that, is I feel like there's a whole other side to it. Because back in the early days of the proto-internet, aka CompuServe, AOL, etc., I was deeply involved in a group that basically was looking for ways to do things that you couldn't do normally. So by like taking codes with a Game Shark and like trying to do silly things like make General Leo permanently playable in Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah.
So I definitely used a Game Genie on my NES back in the day. It was the only way for me to play most games. I was young, and NES games are both
somewhat difficult.
Well, so it's weird. They aren't responsive. They are punishing. I always like when you're talking about difficulty, it's interesting. We've had a lot of talks about difficulty. There's one by Seamus Young right now that talks about the like 4 aspects of difficulty, which I found really interesting. I find most NES games incredibly punishing, and then at the very same time, like, so when you do fail, they send you all the way back.
Yes.
They're also unforgiving in that if you make a mistake, that mistake will quickly lead to a failure state.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's typically not that hard to not make an individual mistake in an NES game. It's just once you do, you're probably dead and going all the way back and redoing it. So they demand perfection. But I encounter this a lot in board games I play. Typically when like me and my group are playing a game and we like the game, but we discover some sort of like just degenerate strategy that basically makes the game bog down. Like everyone is going to do this one strategy or they're going to get rolled. Usually we tend to edit that out. There's a game called Zombie State that we had to do stuff like that just so that we could keep playing the game because we had fun playing the game, but we had to get rid of the degenerate strategy.
Yeah. And it kind of brings me to the other piece that I've been kind of workshopping is taking minis games and translating them to a hex grid, because it removes one aspect. It removes one skill that takes a lot of time to develop and is questionably worthwhile, which is the ability to eyeball distances, and makes the entire game more discrete and less kind of hand wavy. And I find it really, it's been an interesting thing to discuss with people, because on the one hand, I think Coder's comment was like, wow, I might actually be interested in playing that.
Yeah, I absolutely would.
And other people are like, that would fundamentally change the game. Like, it wouldn't even be the same game. Why that with a tone of like, why would you want to do that? You would irrevocably change the way the game is played. I'm like, yep, absolutely I would. Like, yes, it would be a different game, and I'm excited to see what that game is like. It's totally different. And it's kind of the way I approach a lot of these, like, yeah, I'm going to change or break the rules in search of an experience that I like better, or that the people I'm playing with like better, or that even might be more interesting.
I think to some of it like depends on how you in general feel about house rules.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like house rules are a way to take an experience and tailor it more to the interests of the players. But some people are like purists, like, no, you can't mess with these rules because they're sacrosanct.
Mm-hmm. I run all of my D&D games with house rules of one form or another. And I do it because I think it makes for a better experience. I mean, and granted, different people are perfectly welcome, and almost certainly would disagree. But it's why it's a continually evolving thing. But yeah, and so I don't know. It was an interesting thing for me, and it was sort of interesting to me. It's interesting for me to hear what other people think about, like, yeah, I'm going to change this, and the game is going to be different as a result, and that's cool. We can change that. We can change the reality of this game to better suit the people playing it, either to make it more perfectly tuned to my own personal interests, or more tuned to the group's interests, or make it so that I can play with people that I otherwise wouldn't be able to, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, the utter lack of like a grid or a hex grid or square grid based minis game once again makes me bemoan the fact that the D&D minis game stopped at 3rd edition.
Also, HeroScape is dead.
Yeah, also HeroScape is dead. Although HeroScape looked like a weird game, but there were offshoots of HeroScape that I looked like I'd be interested in. Mostly the ones that don't focus on comic book heroes.
Yeah. And similarly, I spend a lot of time looking at other card games that might have different approaches that don't involve the things that bug me about Magic. But
sadly, Ashes is coming to an end after its next set.
Yeah.
Ashes?
Rise of the Phoenixborn?
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of times in games that are like more niche markets, like minis games or stealth games, or even really CCGs, or lots of different things, like because there isn't a because there isn't a game like HeroScape, there isn't a D&D miniatures expansion, there isn't really a notable card game not called Magic, because you get a stealth game once every 2 or 3 years maybe. Like, sometimes you do gotta change the rules, or you just don't have a game.
I think being able to adapt rules for inclusivity is always good, because I'm new to D&D, and I probably would have been a lot more wary of joining a game if it was going to be all strict rules, because I probably would have been like scared of like messing up or doing something entirely wrong, instead of having, somebody who would be willing to work with me and help me out. So I feel being able to bend rules and change things up really helps people out more than not, obviously.
Yeah. And I like to make, I like to make things that I like to see how to get more people into a thing. Because there's a lot of, like, I love games. I love lots and lots of different kinds of games, but like almost universally, games have an accessibility problem. That just they're not good at bringing in new players.
Yeah, I look at all the history of D&D and like the huge rule book, and I can sit through and flip through it and read it, and it's very intimidating for just starting out. So I like being able to just kind of have a group of people that I feel comfortable playing with and are willing to help me out and find my way, and I can still refer to the book for kind of ideas and, some of the basic knowledge, but I don't feel quite so terrified to take part and actually actively try to play my role.
Yeah, definitely. And it means that the games have more different people with more perspective that come up with stuff that, I would never have thought of, which is cool. It's like, I mean, I've seen both Kodra and Ash look at minis rules sets and say, like, what if you did this? And I'm like, oh, I've never even thought about that. Like, that's cool. What would that look like? I don't know. Let's find out. Is there some way to find out? I don't know.
Well, the biggest thing I do on the regular is I end up cheating my way out of the parts of games that bug me. Like,
I know we had that discussion about Breath of the Wild not too long ago.
Yeah. I mean, I cheated my way out of the one mechanic of Breath of the Wild that I hate, which is breakable weapons. I've done it with every Bethesda game to get rid of inventory so that I just don't care about encumbrance. And in all those cases, like, it makes it a better experience for me personally. Like, if that's a thing that you love, then by all means, go for it. You deal with inventory madness and weapon micromanagement.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I do really get into the I'm going to I want to know what the developer had in mind and try to experience the game as they want to experience it. I also want to have a game that I like.
I am very interested in trying out, see what Warhammer on a Hex Grid looks like, basically.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I do think it will be very different.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what happens, I guess. Also, hilariously, I have armies for both edge cases. So, we'll see what happens.
What do you mean both edge cases?
So if I want to bring 1,000 points of troops, I can bring like 80 rats, or I can bring 6 dudes on mounts.
Yeah. I'm curious. So does the measurement and the like discrete play space also sort of wig you out, Ash?
A little bit.
Okay.
I remember there was a design document about the board game / card game / whatever Aegis is when they were designing it. So they were originally designing it as a minis game, and it turned off all the people who were into board games. They had it had measurements.
Ah.
So the final version is a hex grid.
Oh, interesting. But is it minis like?
It is minis like, yes. You have 5 robots, your opponent has 5 robots, you do things to each other, mostly.
Are you like customizing what robots you're going to play with?
Yeah, and they have a combining mechanic, and it's got a bunch of stuff in it.
Interesting.
It would take me a while to find that document again, but as their Kickstarter finished, as they were fulfilling orders, they published a document on these are all the things we had to do to get this from idea to reality.
I might have to pick up a copy of this. Also, they say the game length is 25 to 60 minutes, so that's also much better than most minis games.
I feel like measurements and cover rules are always the most obtuse parts of a mini game.
Oh, it's absolutely true.
It's
That
just
and
sheer
facing.
madness.
Facing is dumb.
Facing. Oh god, yeah, facing.
Yeah.
And what constitutes base-to-base contact?
And that's one of the things that I think I had a fairly long conversation about this with another friend of mine who's like skeptical about bringing another minis game Infinity that we like to a hex grid because of all of the things. It's like, yeah, you would get a markedly different game out the other side, but I think there's a whole bunch of weird edge casey rules in the existing rule set that would just evaporate instantly on a hex grid. And things like facing, like, okay, you know what direction you can.
Facing is much easier now.
Facing suddenly easy.
Yeah, you face one of your hex either faces or points. Like you figure out what the rule is, but that's how facing works. And it's very easy to know, like, what can you see?
And there are going to be some like there's going to be some imperfect things like, oh hey, this thing doesn't fit cleanly in a bunch of hexes because it's not one hex sized. But like also that's not any more confusing or less discrete than other things that the game was already doing. So
I'm sure we could figure out a hex shape for a 90 by 120 millimeter base.
Yeah. And as long as you can essentially write the new rules in a way that's easy to understand. I mean, like the thing that I occasionally mention about Magic is, what if you had a spells deck and a land deck, and whenever you drew a card, you could pick which one you were drawing from? You know, is that going to change the game dramatically? Yeah, absolutely. But is it really easy to understand what's going on there? Yeah, I think so.
Sure.
That one has some fun cases. There's an enchantment that lets you do that already. I think it's called Abundance. Basically lets you choose whether your next draw is going to be land or not land. I think it would be interesting to see that. Actually, that'd be funny. They keep putting streamer rules into Magic Arena, which frequently duplicate an existing enchantment or some other thing that already exists. Like this month is going to be Cascade Constructed, so it's basically like everyone has a Maelstrom Nexus in play. What if one of them was just everybody has Abundance in play? I'd be interested to try that next time we try Commander or something.
Yeah.
That's honestly like one of the things I enjoy the most about Magic Arena is just the weird rule sets that trickle in every so often.
I think so. With that, I think you would have to set some more strict deck construction rules.
Probably, sure.
Like, you can never have
Because
more
the
lands than
optimal-
spells. Or more, yeah.
Yes, that one. Because the optimal would be to have your combo in your non-land stack and a bunch of lands.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of the fun of it for me is like, okay, how does this change things? How do you deal with it? Like, what rules do you have to write to make sure that your rules changes work?
Yeah. I've done stuff like this. I've done board game playtesting, and I like it from the perspective of, okay, now I have a new set of rules. How do I break this thing? And then how do we take the fact that I broke this thing and build some new rules for that?
Yeah.
I'm always in that QA hacker mindset there. But yeah, I do think it's reasonable. I think you would need to set some deck construction restrictions on both of those things, but I think that would be fine. It does mean that a couple of edge case decks, like lands decks, no longer
Sure.
exist, but that's fine. Nobody was playing those anyways, other than mean people.
Come on. Certainly nobody was playing those in Standard.
It's true. No one's playing those in Standard.
So
I mean, I feel
Arena
like-
wouldn't have any problems with it.
Yeah.
I feel like Living Twister might have an edge case where you could build a deck that's just a bunch of land that you discard to deal 2 damage per land to your opponent.
I feel like Living Twister is more about pitching excess lands rather than anything else. I don't think I think that's an escape valve rather than like a game plan. Now, if we're talking about Sulfuric Vortex, then it's your game plan. And that was a standard deck for a while. It's not anymore, though.
Honestly, like, the side of this discussion that I've never really understood is the rules purists. Because I guess
people do honestly believe that what's written in the book is all there is and all there should be, and that's that.
I mean, I've never gone into any game expecting to play it completely vanilla. Like, even, my first role-playing game experiences were, like, remixing an amalgam of different resources together.
If you are very competitive, it's important that everyone is playing with the rules as written.
I mean, I feel like that might be the big difference, is, like, I'm not terribly competitive.
But you should also know when you are supposed to be competitive, like in a tournament environment.
It's true. You do want everyone playing by the same rules in a tournament. Otherwise, sadness could happen. Called cheating. But, like, when you're just playing with yourself or amongst friends, like, who cares? There's also, like, a certain aspect of gatekeeping that I've seen in various communities about playing things only on hardcore mode. Like, you're not a real gamer unless you're playing everything on the hardest possible setting.
So here's a secret. Here's a secret. Dark Souls is a game that exists. Be a magician.
It's actually like probably my biggest complaint about Sekiro is it just doesn't have any like anything that makes it easier. Like of the Dark Souls game, Sekiro is the most pure. And that's probably why this is coming up even more. But yeah, in Dark Souls, if you play a pyromancer, you can just laugh your way. You're gonna learn a bunch. You're gonna still die, but it's gonna be a lot easier than like the people who are trying to do this. People are making that game harder on themselves intentionally.
I mean, and if that's their jam, then more power to them. But there should be like no judgment towards, casual players.
Yeah. And that's the thing that, like, I love Dark Souls games, but I do not like the Dark Souls community because I did not play those games for years because I was like, oh, these games are here to, like, beat me over the head and make me feel miserable, and I just have no interest in it. Like, I heard all about Dark Souls from my old Atlanta board game group. They're a bunch of hyper-competitive people, and they're, like, telling me about how hard Dark Souls is and how much they died and how, like, satisfying it was to get these kills and how much it, like, just kept killing them over and how great it felt. And I was like, yeah, I don't think I need a game that's just trying to abuse me over and over. But when I finally played it, I loved it. Like, once I finally got over the hump.
Yeah, so I don't have a proper transition out of this topic, so I'm just going to exit since it's slowing down. Like, I kept trying to come up with a possible, way to tie it together, but, a game that, I've been missing significantly, and I think Thalen has as well, is Marvel Heroes.
Oh, me too.
And, I know Ammo's played it, but I don't know if anybody else in this group really played that game. I really liked it. I thought it was a good Diablo game. It was Marvel Heroes. You got to, run around in cool costumes.
It was a good follow-up to Marvel Ultimate Alliance, which was no longer being made.
Well, there's a Switch title, isn't there?
3 is due very soon on the Switch, but
yeah.
Prior to that, it's been 10 years.
Right, it's been dead in the water. Wasn't the last one on the PS2?
No, it was PS3.
Okay. For some reason, I was thinking it was PS2. But anyway, there's not been a game for that niche. So somehow this past week, it led me to start Googling, first of all, to see if there were any private servers. And no, nobody's made private servers for the game yet. However, in one of those threads, someone mentioned that like the closest thing that we have currently is a mobile game called Marvel Future Fight, and it's by Netmarble, which is a creator of a bunch of mobile games from South Korea, not all of which have ever made it to English. But yeah, like it's not a bad replacement for Marvel Heroes. And I have been playing the hell out of it because Netmarble, unlike Nintendo, does not give a shit about you using Android emulators on PCs. And playing it on the PC allows you to do something very cool, which is control it with WASD and play it like I don't know, like one of the WASD Diablo-y type games, action RPGs. So I have weirdly been playing the hell out of this game, and I largely blame Dragalia Lost because it is the game that kind of indoctrinated me into the whole mobile gameplay thing.
Mobile games can be real games.
Mobile games can be real games, but it's also a game that like largely got me to look past all of the gachapon mechanics and realize that, you know, I could just play the game. Like, I don't have to worry about them too much. Now, Marvel Future Fight is a very free-to-play game, which is a thing I've started referring to a lot.
A very free-to-play.
Yeah, when you encounter a game that's constantly throwing offers at you. This game goes like one step past most of those games, where not only does it constantly throw an offer in front of you, but then it warns you that you won't be able to do this offer again until it comes up later. So like, are you really sure that you want to, you know, not spend $39 on some random package of crap?
I'm pretty sure I don't actually want to do that. Yes.
No, you don't want to do that. The only other main issue that I have is, for the most part, like, there's a lot of stuff that does not even need to have the store involved. They seem to be very giving of new characters. There's a mechanic of the game called biometrics, and like anytime you fight a character, you collect a certain number of biometrics, and when you get like 10 of them, you can spin the biometrics and unlock that character permanently. So you're constantly getting new characters to play. The only negative is all of the costumes are bought with the cash shop currency, which in theory isn't a bad thing, except for the costumes all drastically change the way that every character plays.
Oh.
They are not cosmetic.
Wow.
So that sucks. Just straight up, that sucks. You can earn a decent amount of the cash shop currency just doing stuff in the game, and in doing so, I've been able to unlock 2 costumes that way. But that's a problem. Like, it's not exactly pay to win, but God, it's close.
Yeah.
Because the way that like Captain America feels with the default outfit versus the way Captain America feels with the new Endgame outfit is significantly different. Like, the Captain America with the new costume has like invulnerability frames on a bunch of his attacks and like 50% reduction in damage, and so yeah, like there's a big difference between normal Cap and this Cap. So that's the real complaint that I have. If you can somehow look past that, it's a fun game. Like, I'm enjoying the shit out of it. I play it on the emulator on a PC so I can do WASD, and then I can still play it on the phone elsewhere. There's a ton of story content, which is largely incomprehensible because all mobile game content seems to be incomprehensible.
Dragalia Lost has 4 chapters of actual story.
Yeah.
Before it goes off the rails.
So like the story for this is, I think, a lot like the story that you unlock for some of the weirder characters in Dragalia Lost.
Fair enough.
I mean, it's mostly a story about like, okay, Marvel in itself has problems because there's all these different universes. So like, yeah, this is Earth, whatever. Well, like, this is a game largely about all of these realities merging together, so that when you fight a hero, you're like fighting the evil version of a hero. or one that's been mind controlled by, Enchantress or something like that. So yeah, like most of the story is nonsense. However, it does provide a sequence of things that you can just do. Like you just follow the story. And it wasn't until chapter 10 that I finally encountered something that I couldn't take out, that I'm going to have to grind to gear up enough to be able to fight. And each chapter has 8 to 10 subsections of a chapter, so that was a lot of content. Like, it took me the better part of this week to get to that point. I just hit the wall today. But anyway, like, if you're missing Marvel Heroes like I was, you might check it out. It's kind of cool. It has issues, like so many mobile games do, but the gameplay is fun. Marvel somehow allowed them to create their own characters, which is interesting.
Before. Like there was Rise of the Imperfects in the PS2 era.
Yeah, so they've gone through and created a bunch of characters with South Korean origins to basically localize Marvel to make it feel better, I guess. So like
more
there's
familiar
one
to their home audience then.
Yeah. It's apparently really big in South Korea. But there's like a superhero that's an idol singer. My favorite of the new characters is so storyline wise, basically, what if Captain America didn't get frozen and instead lived happily ever with Agent Carter, and instead of Sharon Carter being a thing, they had a daughter named Sharon Rogers, who's now taken the Captain America mantle and runs around with a gun, lance, and a shield. So it's like this weird amalgam of Captain America and She-Ra is what it reminds me of. But
that does sound pretty cool.
It's the character I play the most of because, like, I love Captain America, and like this is a cool take with like a robotic gun lance.
I did download it.
And they give you like weird bonuses for playing characters together that know each other. So like my party right now consists of Agent 13, which is Sharon Carter, and this new character, which is Sharon Rogers, and so you get a buff for having them together. It's like Sharon Power or something like that.
So I guess this is cross multiverse if those characters, because those are both the same person, right?
Yeah, they're theoretically the same person. One where Captain and Agent Carter got together, one where they didn't. But yeah, like, and then there's another one for putting both Captain Americas together. That's like family business or something like that. So like you can stack buffs for having people together in weird mixes. And you only actually fight as one character at a time, but at any point you can switch between the other two characters in your party. But in this case, I'm mostly just dragging them along with me for buffs.
Oh, kind of like Darkspore.
Yeah, kind of.
No, I'm never going to let it go.
Something Darkspore was the first MOBA?
It was definitely not the first MOBA.
No.
But it was one of the better Diablo clones that has existed, and definitely no longer exists.
I don't know if it survived the GameSpy server death, did it?
Oh, EA killed it before that.
Okay. There's a lot of games that basically just died when the GameSpy servers went down. I didn't know if that was one of them or not.
Nope.
Mostly I'm shocked as hell that like I'm actually seriously playing a mobile game, considering I was on that fence of not really considering mobile games real games. And it's weird to me that like that's changed in my mind.
Thanks, Nintendo.
Yeah, thanks, Nintendo. Also, emulators are your friend, Nintendo. Seriously.
Yeah, right.
Let me play Dragalia Lost with WASD or a controller. Like, I would be perfectly... So the funny thing about that is, anytime I find one of these mobile games that I like, I just really want it to come to the Switch. Like, I'm fine with the weird mobile game mechanics. I'll just ignore them like I'm doing now and play it with the joystick. Also, random impromptu topic that I'm going to shim in here real quick. I got a fight stick.
You got a fight stick?
I ordered a fight stick.
Is there any particular game you're going to be fight sticking with?
I have been playing Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter V.
Mortal Kombat 11? The new one?
Yeah, the new one.
Nice.
I am mostly playing that game, though, for the story, which is weird to say, but like...
I mean, I played BlazBlue almost exclusively for the story.
I feel like NetherRealm has perfected the art of telling a story through a fighting game.
They've been doing it in Justice for how many years now?
Right. Like, they basically... So I played some of 10, and its story wasn't as good as Injustice, but like 11 basically takes all of the lessons that they learned doing Injustice and finally brings it to Mortal Kombat. Like, there's an actual story that you care about as you're going through, except for playing through the story feels really freaking weird. Because fights just happen in the middle of a cutscene. Like,
Weird.
It's cool when they do it, but like, you're in the middle of a cutscene and you're just watching it, and then all of a sudden the camera shifts in such a way as to give you the familiar 2D-ish fighting plane. So it's like just the camera swings around, and then boom, you happen to be in the spot that you need to be to start a fighting match, and you get the round one. So like, it's completely seamless going in and out of the story. The only negative about that is it's hard to find a stopping point when you need to exit, because after the match it goes straight into more story.
Neat.
There is no pause. Like, it's just, you're gonna ride for a while. So I played through 2.5 hours the first night, and finally, like, I need to go do something else, and exited out. But when you pop back in, it like picks up at the beginning of the post-fight cutscene and continues you forward.
That sounds neat.
It's really cool. Yeah, and I highly suggest this fight stick. Was really reasonable.
Which one?
I got the Mayflash F500, which is a Chinese-made stick, so you're not dealing with like Sanwa quality or Cherry or Hap, but it's a good clone of Sanwa. And the main reason why I went with that is because it has out-of-the-box support for PS3, PS4, anything that does X input, and Nintendo Switch. So basically it has out-of-the-box support with anything I would want to play it on. To get PS4 working, you have to do the thing where you hook up another controller to the fight stick and do the pass-through to where it's basically authenticating with the PS4 off of the PS4 controller as a kind of, I don't know, man in the middle. But that's kind of common for things that support the PS4 but don't officially support the PS4.
Yes.
But the biggest reason why I went with this is because it's designed in such a way that all of the standard arcade parts can be swapped into it. So if at some point I decide to swap it all out with Sanwa parts or Seimitsu or any of the other arcade manufacturers, I can just do that and life's fine. It also came with both a square gate and an octagonal gate. And Ash, I know, knows what these things are, but for any of our listeners that don't, joysticks in Japan and joysticks in basically everywhere else in the world evolve differently. And if you grew up playing in American arcades, there is a distinct 8-directional feel to the joystick. Like, there's a pocket for each one of the 8 directions that you can put the stick into. That is an octagonal gate. The Japanese sticks are a square gate. So, like, literally, there is no up. So, like, if you push the joystick up, you're just on a flat wall. There's no niche that you can bump into to cleanly know you're in the up position, which is really hard for me to get used to, especially for doing moves like fireballs and things like that, because I'm used to having the walls there to ride around. But traditionally, like, all of the fight sticks that you get now that are designed as fight sticks come with square gates, and you have to buy a third-party octagonal gate if you want to swap it out. So I was super happy that it came with both gates, and all I had to do was pop open the back and put the new gate in. But enough of that. Another big thing that happened this week was War of the Spark on Arena, and I guess this weekend is pre-releases as well.
Yup. Although I didn't go play any physical. I have been playing a whole bunch of War of the Spark sealed. This is such a weird set.
It seems really high powered.
I mean, it's lots and lots of Planeswalkers, that's for sure. Like, more Planeswalkers than you would ever expect in a limited environment.
That's what happens when you have one in every pack.
It is what happens when you have one in every pack.
I mean, I've been in matches where someone had 4 Planeswalkers on the board.
Yep.
And that seems like nonsense.
It's a lot of different things happening. And
although, like, admittedly, several of the Planeswalkers are mostly just enchants.
Some of them are, although I don't know. Even the one that I was like, oh, that guy's not, like, that's not doing anything scary. Ashiok.
That guy.
Yeah. So Ashiok is one of those cards that I definitely evaluated pretty low in my initial estimations. Just because he doesn't actually affect the board state. All he is doing is milling your opponent. But if you manage to spend all of his loyalty, he will mill you for 20. Like, that's half your deck. So all of them are pretty powerful, and what this becomes is if you think you've got the Planeswalker advantage, you're highly incentivized to play very, very defensive, because you have to protect your Planeswalkers. So conversely, my most successful deck I've had thus far was a extremely low to the ground white-red aggressive deck. Like, it was almost all two mana casting cost creatures and 3 mana casting cost creatures, and very efficient removal spells. And then I think I had 4 cards that cost more than 3 mana, and so I was able to just get in really low and hit them, and every time they played a Planeswalker, I was able to clear it off the board immediately. But every other deck I've played has been very slow and very grindy. It's led to a lot of, like, board stalls where neither person can attack the other, and we're just trying to look and see whose Planeswalkers are better. It really means that any card that has good amounts of evasion, whether it's flying or even better, Ashiok's Infiltrator or whatever that card's called, that card that is a 3/5 and can give itself unblockable is great. Just because it's hard to get through these big board stalls.
I got a lot of play out of the Ice and Manipulator Knight. Like, a significant amount of play out of that card.
Yep. That guy's really good.
Because basically, like, there's a lot of rounds that was the thing that saved my butt. Or allowed me to attack.
Yeah, as long as you don't need him to tap down an army. Because he'll get you. You think he's just going to tap down anything, but it's CMC 2 or greater. And so if your opponent's amassed an army, he can't tap that down.
Right. But man, you chain that with Nahiri.
Yeah.
And you can just take targets out.
What have you guys thought about playing with Amass?
I've not had any Amass cards, really. Like, I've only done 1 round of Sealed, and I did not get a great draw. So I kind of made a mess of a deck that was white, black, green, but it didn't have any Amass effects in it.
Oh, white and green are the 2 least likely to are the 2 that don't have Amass. I'm actually really enjoying blue right now because it has access to both Amass and Proliferate, and those are 2 very, very synergistic mechanics.
Proliferate is so stupid.
Proliferate is amazing.
Yeah. Aren't you glad that you have so many new Proliferate cards?
I mean,
there's 2 new flyers that proliferate on combat damage.
Yes.
That was definitely needed.
Sure. Thrumming definitely needed some companions.
There's a lot of Planeswalkers that I wasn't sure what I thought about them, but having played with them, I love them. Like, I really like Arlen Cord.
Oh, Arlen Cord is terrifying.
If you've got something that can also continue buffing those wolves, it's just mean.
You mean Proliferate in green?
Yes.
So that is a card that I'm looking forward to, because I have a deck that makes a bunch of wolf tokens. So I don't even need to use her ability. She just makes everything that deck does better.
I have definitely spent a lot of time going 0-3 in Sealed.
Oh.
Yeah, that was... I went 1-3, but they were really long matches.
There's definitely more interesting stuff going on, which I like.
One of the things about that I noticed about Sealed is there is a lot of removal in this set, more than there was in previous sets. It's a lot easier to play a very control-y game. It's also a lot easier to really cut yourself on creatures, which I think is a problem that I've done with a couple of my deck constructions.
I mean, the challenge that I had with my deck is like, with white, green, black, I just didn't have many big beaters at the high end. Like, the biggest thing I had was the land enchantment that gave me a 9/9 land, but it's not 9/9 trample, so people can chump block it for days until they can finally do something to remove it. And you're right, there's it's not just direct removal too. Like, there's prison effects in this set that like basically take it off the board. Which when you put it into standard too, like, there's a lot of that. And the last two sets had tons of removal too. But like we said earlier, I think the thing I'm enjoying the most about Arena is how often they're changing things up to keep things feeling fresh.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like they get what they need to do to compete with Hearthstone, for example, which is not exactly something I've always been able to say about Wizards of the Coast. Maybe they finally understand the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm also very happy at the number of codes that they've given out in various events that, give you a pack here or, a special card there. I was, however, super disappointed that the Challenger decks don't come with codes.
I mean, the things that are closest to an actual deck you might play in Standard don't come with codes to let you play them in Arena?
No, they don't.
That's annoying.
Whereas, like, the Planeswalker decks all come with codes. The 2018 gift set came with a code. Although I do love the thing that seems to have evolved where each time a new set comes out, there's a code to give you 3 free packs. Because there was Play Guilds, Play Allegiances, and now Play War Spark. I think it's going to be extremely interesting when we get the next set change, since they've already said they're not wiping the cards this time.
Yeah, I'm curious what they're going to be doing next time.
I mean, that whole postmodern concept could be a thing.
Yeah.
I need to come up with a better name than that.
I found it funny.
I mean, I would really like to see them start putting in the alternate sets that get released. Like, so when Modern Horizons comes out, it would be cool for it to have a draft mode in Arena that would be playable in whatever this
the new format is.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how they're going to do that. I don't imagine that they'll do Modern Horizons though. I mean, unless Modern's not really planned to be supported here.
I feel like they should work their way back.
Maybe.
Well, and I also think this is a format that would work well for the weird yearly set that they seem to do, like Conspiracy or Battle Bond, that's built around a specific gameplay mode.
They haven't done Conspiracy in forever.
Well, yeah, but Battle Bond took the slot that Conspiracy was. Like, there seems to be that one set.
I feel like Unstable took that slot.
I mean, maybe. Unstable was basically the only card that's worth any value in the pack is the land set.
Sure. But also playing those cards was actually pretty fun.
Yeah.
I mean, Unstable would be hilarious as an Arena format.
I mean, there's a bunch of things that wouldn't work there, but that's fine.
Yeah, the phone a friend effects.
Yeah.
It integrates with Discord, and you talk to somebody on Discord.
Oh, stop.
I guess we'll see what War of the Spark ends up as we play more of it. Okay, Ash, what is Lancer?
Lancer is an tabletop RPG system that's run on the Kickstarter. They've had public playtests for, I guess, several years now. The entire RPG is available on itch for free, but the Kickstarter is for, the fancy layout version. It is a mech-based RPG. You are a pilot. You have a giant robot. You do things. I find it very interesting for a number of reasons, starting with their setting fiction waves some hands, which is fine, but the result is more science fantasy than science fiction. So you have giant robots, and they have swords, and there is also some vaguely defined science, which may or may not be magic. And then the setting is our galaxy. They neglected to include any aliens, intentionally. So it's mostly about human drama on a galactic scale with giant robots. The system is also custom, although it is D20 based. They decided that all you needed was a D20 and some D6s, so easy enough to get a hold of. It does not use the normal D20 stats. One of the more interesting things about it is that its class list, character skills, and mech parts are all fairly modular. You can design it to do a very large number of things. You could have like a fast close range mech, or like a skirmisher, or a big giant walking tank, or a weird thing that bends probability in your favor, or just a platform for a very, very large railgun. They also, unlike Wizards, seem to understand how the internet works, and already have a character tool available.
Have you played any of it?
I haven't played it, just discovered it this past week, and it's a tabletop RPG, not like there is no electronic game associated with it at the moment.
There's a shocking number of things that are supported through Tabletop Simulator. There's apparently a thriving, what's the Richard Garfield game that has fixed decks?
Hero Forge? No.
Keyforge. Yeah, apparently there's like a thriving Keyforge community that plays over Tabletop Simulator, which requires an awful lot of setup to make that work.
Sounds like it would, yes. This one comes with... Toadchild basically pointed this one out to me, and I spent most of the week reading it. It is currently on Kickstarter. Will probably still be on Kickstarter by the time you hear this. And I have a bad habit of paying into RPGs that show up on Kickstarter, so I did. So we'll see how this one turns out.
Nice.
So, another bit of news this week is, well, technically we've known about this for a while, but there's a Persona 5.5 coming out?
Persona?
Something to that effect?
Persona 5 The Royal.
Yeah, looks kind of like the 5 version of Golden for 4, perhaps.
Looks that way.
Yeah, it looks like it's, they've added a couple new characters, another social link and another character who might become one of the Phantom Thieves.
I'm pretty sure the trailer showed her in battle.
Yeah, she definitely does. It looks like they added more spots to hang out, because that was one of my main complaints about 5, was like the team didn't really hang out just to do normal hangout stuff, not as much as like the teams from the other games did, especially 4. So I definitely welcome more stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited about the new stuff. I really enjoyed what came in Golden, so...
Yes. And they also teased their other game, which is like the Musou or Dynasty Warriors style game.
I'm here for it.
Yes, me too. Not too much about that one, though. It was a fairly short teaser, but it looks like it should be pretty cool.
I need to actually get somewhere in that game.
In 5?
Yes.
Where did you leave off?
I kind of bounced pretty early. I'm hoping for something that's not going to happen. Because I had a hard time relating to some of the early experiences that you have, because it seemed weird to me. But I don't think this will change any of that.
I don't know that's really going to change much of what's actually existing in the game. It seems like a lot of it might be kind of tacked on at the end of where the first game ended, but I'm not entirely sure.
I'm excited about this one because one of the things that I felt was missing from that game was a lot of the going and hanging out stuff, and a lot of that, in retrospect, a lot of that was in Golden.
I only played Golden and not the original one, so I don't really know how much of that exactly was added back in, but I'm really looking forward to that too. I think it'll be a nice addition. It'll feel more like a team of friends, or a group of friends, instead of just like the team of Phantom Thieves.
Yeah, that's definitely something I felt like it was missing.
Yes, definitely.
I'm very curious what this story is going to be. I know it's too hopeful, but I really wish this could be DLC. I don't really want to play that game all over again.
I'm pretty sure it's a whole brand new game.
It's very unlikely to be DLC.
Yeah.
It's true.
I just hope that saves will transfer.
That is also not likely.
Also not likely, but...
If you could New Game Plus through Royal...
Yeah, but I also don't know how much they're changing.
It's true.
The changes from Persona 4 to Golden are significant. I mean, the changes from Persona 3 to the other Persona 3s were also pretty significant.
Yeah, but that resulted in there being no actual definitive version of that game.
Yes, well, there's absolutely a definitive version of that one. It's just weird. Starkly better main character.
And no cutscenes.
Like I said, they did figure out audio levels later. It just took them a while.
But hey, they got there, and that's the important thing.
It's true. Plus, I'll play that UI. It's so good.
Yeah, that's another thing about Royal. It's only been announced for PS4 so far, so like no PS3 version. So I guess if you only play the PS3 version, you're kind of out of luck anyway, and you're gonna have to start over.
Is that the version you played on?
No, I played PS4.
Oh, okay.
Release on PS3 in the States? Because I don't think it did.
I have no idea. Until just now, I didn't even realize it had come out on PS3 on anything.
Yeah, the Persona 5.
That was the
it
original
came
release.
out. Yeah.
I mean, Persona 4 was originally on PS2, right?
Yep, it closed out the PS2.
Now the Scramble game, which is the Musou alike, that one is going to be on PS4 and the Switch.
I love that they try all kinds of insane things with this series. Like,
Yes.
Musou, sure. Fighting game, sure. Music dance game, sure.
Also, Joker's in Smash.
Joker's really
That's
weird
so
in
weird.
Smash.
So is that
Very weird
DLC
character.
out?
Yeah. That was out before this announcement.
It's really nice too because the stage that they put in for him was the Memento stage, and there's different colored versions for like Persona 3 and Persona 4 also, and plays music from the different games. So that's really cool little touch.
I'm kind of hoping that Persona 5.5 ends up getting a Switch release. That would be really nice.
Get a late release. Companies are learning to hold off on their Switch announcements because it seems to prevent people from buying other versions of their games.
I mean, as it stands right now, Switch is kind of the platform of choice for most of my purchases.
Yeah.
I did not think I would enjoy my Switch as much as I ended up liking it, and now if I have the choice, I think I would definitely pick Switch games before other consoles at this rate too. So I just really like just how flexible it is.
Well, do we have any other topics that we want to discuss quickly?
I think we're good.
We're good.
Well, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you again next week.
And thanks for joining us, Ammo.
Welcome.
Yep, it was awesome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hopefully we'll see more of you.
I think I'll be around.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you.